I never believed that my biggest professional betrayal would come from someone I considered not just a business partner, but a friend. I invested all my savings into our company, only to hear James say with a smile on his face, "The company is mine now, Olivia. You're out." His words echoed through the conference room I had decorated just 6 months earlier, the same room where I had spent countless nights developing the visual identities that made our agency well known in Austin. The very same room where we celebrated our first major client with cheap champagne, promising it was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Maybe I should have seen the signs. They were all there, flashing like warning lights I chose to ignore. Meetings I wasn't invited to, clients I never met in person, financial decisions made without my input. 2 years earlier, I had a stable job as a senior designer at a major marketing agency. Predictable hours, steady salary, full benefits. But every Monday, I felt that tightness in my chest as I stepped into the steel and glass elevator. That feeling that I was building dreams for everyone except myself. I saved every penny I could during those years. I cut out vacations, dinners out, new clothes. My father, a retired accountant, would shake his head in disapproval whenever I talked about starting my own business. "The world is full of talented creatives who went bankrupt because they didn't understand the numbers," he would say. Then I met James at a design conference. He had everything I lacked: charisma, connections, sales expertise. While I worried about color palettes and typography, he talked about scalability and valuation. When he proposed our partnership, it seemed perfect. My creative skills and his business connections. I would invest my $150,000 in exchange for 50% of Horizon Creative. "We'll be the next big agency in Austin," he promised, toasting over contracts that, in my naivete, I didn't read as carefully as I should have. And now, less than a year later, I was standing there, listening to him explain how my role would be downgraded to a contracted designer. How I needed to accept reality and understand that the company had outgrown my capabilities. "I don't think you understand the situation, Olivia," James continued, adjusting the cuffs of his custom-made shirt. "The investor is ready to inject $2 million, but there's one condition. We need a clear leadership structure, a decisive voice." I looked around the conference room, at the walls I had painted myself over a weekend to save on decoration costs. On the shelves sat the awards we had won because of my designs, including the Visual Innovation Award that put our small agency on the map. Our partnership had started with so much enthusiasm. After that first conversation at the conference, James and I met for weeks at coffee shops, outlining our vision. I showed him my previous projects, explained my user-centered design philosophy. He dazzled me with stories of big deals and famous clients. "You're exactly what I've been looking for," he said the day we signed our initial contract. "Someone with real creative talent. I'm tired of agencies that just follow trends." The first 3 months were a whirlwind. I rented a small space in the Arts District and turned it into a functional studio. We hired 2 junior designers and an administrative assistant. James kept bringing in new clients almost every week. Always. Taking them out to lunches or happy hours where I was rarely invited. "These are boring business talks," he would explain. "You'd be bored. Besides, we need you focused on what you do best, creating." I worked tirelessly, often sleeping on the office couch to meet deadlines. Meanwhile, James became increasingly absent, always in important meetings or building relationships. When I asked for details, his answers were vague, full of business jargon that sounded impressive but explained little. The first real red flag appeared when I asked to see our full financials. We were landing clients, but money always seemed tight. "Don't worry about that," James dismissed with his usual confident smile. "We're in a growth phase. We need to reinvest before we can reap the rewards." My father always said, "Never trust someone who doesn't want to show you the numbers." But I ignored his advice, convinced that James was just focused on the bigger picture. What a fool I was. It was a casual comment from our junior designer Zoe that finally opened my eyes. We were working on a new campaign when she mentioned, "This project for Neurotech is way more exciting than that corporate job for Vertex Holdings." I stopped typing. "What job for Vertex Holdings?" Zoe paled. "Oh, I thought, James didn't tell you. Sorry, I assumed you knew. That night, I waited until everyone had left and started digging. In the company's shared files, I found a hidden folder with projects I had never seen before. Entire campaigns, contracts, figures that made our other clients seem insignificant. All signed by James, using my designers, without my knowledge. The next day, I stormed into James's office without knocking. What is Vertex Holdings, and why are you hiding clients from me? His expression shifted quickly from surprise to calculated control. I'm not hiding anything. These are sensitive negotiations, not finalized yet. I was going to tell you when everything was set. Like all the other mystery clients I found out about last night, this represents more than 60% of our revenue, James. Revenue I've never seen in our reports. He sighed dramatically, like an adult dealing with a difficult child. Look, Olivia, this is why partnerships need a clear division of responsibilities. You're brilliant at design, but business has nuances that, well, require experience. Experience in hiding revenue from your partner? Don't be dramatic. I'm building something big here, for both of us. He paused strategically. Speaking of which, I have exciting news. An investor is interested, huge growth potential. It was his classic technique, deflect, dazzle with possibilities. But this time, I saw past the facade. Behind his confident smile, there was something calculated that sent a chill down my spine. I want to see all the contracts, I demanded. All the financial records, now. Of course, he agreed easily. I'll have accounting prepare everything. He never did. That night, sitting in my apartment, I started connecting dots I had ignored before. Questionable invoices, mysterious clients, contract clauses I didn't remember approving. The harsh reality became clear. We weren't partners. I was just a stepping stone in James's climb to success. That same night, I called my best friend, Maya Rodriguez. As a corporate lawyer, Maya had always been skeptical about my partnership with James. He's planning something big, I said, after explaining my discoveries. I need to protect myself, but quietly. Did you read the LLC operating agreement carefully? Maya asked. I thought I did, I replied, opening my laptop to find the document. As we reviewed it together, Maya pointed out clauses that weren't part of our original agreement. Clauses that gave James disproportionate authority to restructure the company if he secured outside funding. This isn't your original signature, Maya noted, comparing documents side by side. It's very similar, but look at the curves in the O and how the A connects. It was forged. My stomach turned. The extent of the manipulation was worse than I had imagined. What do I do now? I asked, feeling a toxic mix of anger and betrayal. Nothing he can see, Maya advised. If James is as calculated as he seems, we need to be smarter. First, we need undeniable evidence. Second, we need a contingency plan. And third, most importantly, we need him to believe he's winning. Over the following weeks, I maintained a facade of normalcy at the office while quietly building my case. I backed up all design files, client work, and communications. I meticulously documented every financial inconsistency I found. In Texas, recording conversations without consent is legal, so I started recording our meetings. During this time, James became more distant, always on the phone, always in external meetings. The tension in the office was palpable. Employees sensed something was wrong, exchanging worried glances when they thought I wasn't looking. The investor wants to meet next week, James announced casually one Friday. Just a formality. Nothing for you to worry about. Of course, I responded with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. You handle the boring business stuff. Meanwhile, Maya was helping me build a legal strategy. We discreetly reached out to Rachel Parker, a former business partner of James who had left his previous company under mysterious circumstances. Her story was disturbingly familiar. James. Connor? She scoffed bitterly. Let me guess. Big promises, impressive connections, and then suddenly the numbers don't add up? Rachel met me at a cafe 3 cities away from Austin. James is methodical, she explained, stirring her coffee nervously. He doesn't improvise. He studies his victims, figures out what they can offer, talent, capital, connections, and then runs the same playbook. What playbook? I asked, discreetly recording our conversation. First, he charms with big promises. Then he isolates you from financial operations. Next, he brings in an investor to dilute your ownership. Finally, he forces you out. She made air quotes around investor. In my company, the investor was his cousin. Who is it this time? David Wilson, I answered. Rachel quickly typed on her phone. David Wilson, from Vantage Capital. Interesting. No obvious family connection to James, but she turned her screen toward me, an old photo from a corporate event. James and David, arms around each other like old friends. They've known each other for years, Rachel concluded. James probably planned this before he even proposed the partnership with you. My disappointment was overwhelming, but something inside me also hardened. There was a certain relief in finally confirming my suspicions, in knowing I wasn't crazy. What did you do? I asked. I took the severance payout. That was a mistake. Her gaze darkened. He's done this to at least 3 other partners. No one ever confronted him properly because he's meticulous about keeping up appearances. I returned to the office with newfound clarity. Over the following weeks, I implemented several layers of my defense plan. First, I established direct relationships with our key clients. Always under innocent pretexts, project check-ins, minor design tweaks. Gradually, I built bridges that existed independently of James. Second, with Maya's help, I documented a pattern of fraudulent behavior. We discovered that James was running a parallel company called Horizon Solutions, deliberately named to resemble our Horizon Creative. Several of our biggest clients were paying this company, not ours. Third, we identified the real David Wilson. Using professional contacts, Maya discovered that he wasn't a legitimate venture investor, but rather a financial consultant with a questionable history, involved in multiple lawsuits for deceptive practices. Meanwhile, James's behavior became bolder. He hired a chief financial officer, a college friend with no relevant qualifications. He started removing my name from client communications. In internal meetings, he increasingly referred to the company as my agency rather than our agency. The final straw came when our biggest client, a tech startup I had built a close relationship with, sent an email congratulating me on the expansion to Chicago, something I had never heard of. A quick investigation revealed that James was using our portfolio, my work, to open an office in another state, completely behind my back. That night, Maya and I finalized our counterattack plan. He's going to call you into a meeting soon, Maya predicted. Probably with David present. That's when he'll try to force you out. How do you know? It's the perfect timing. End of the fiscal year. Great for paperwork. Plus, she pointed at the calendar on my phone, your initial financial contribution reaches the 1-year mark next week. In many contracts, that signals the end of the protected investment period. As expected, 2 days later, James sent an email scheduling a crucial strategic meeting for the following Friday. The subject, Horizon's Future, Significant Growth Opportunity. David Wilson would be present. This is it, I told Maya. He's going to try to push me out. And we'll be ready, she replied, handing me a thick folder of legal documents. Everything is here. Evidence of the fraud, the forged documents, the client contracts he hid. The day before the big meeting, I did something I should have done from the start. I called my father. Dad, I said when he answered, remember when you told me that creatives often go bankrupt because they don't understand numbers? You were right, but now I understand the numbers very well. I explained everything. His initial silence turned into a determination I recognized, the same one that was starting to grow inside me. I want you to tell me something and I need the truth, he finally said. This business, without James, without all this mess, is it what you truly want? The answer came without hesitation. More than anything. Then let's do this the right way, he replied. And trust me, the one who's going to learn a lesson won't be you. Friday arrived. I put on my best blazer, the one I had bought years ago for job interviews, ironically, and walked into the conference room 10 minutes early. Strategically, I chose to sit in James's usual seat at the head of the table. I carefully arranged my documents, making sure nothing important was visible. On my phone, I started the recording app. Maya was waiting at a nearby cafe, ready to act as soon as I sent a message. At exactly 10 a.m., James walked in, followed by David Wilson, older than in his photos, wearing an expensive suit that screamed, "Important." They both paused momentarily upon seeing me in the seat of authority, but James quickly recovered. "Olivia, glad you got here early. This is David Wilson from Vantage Capital." "Actually, we've already met," I replied calmly, though it was a complete lie. A flicker of concern crossed James's face, while David looked genuinely confused. "David and I had a very enlightening conversation yesterday," I continued, "about the true state of Horizon Creative." James forced a laugh. "Olivia always likes to joke before big meetings. Why don't we get started? We have a lot to discuss." "Oh, we certainly do," I agreed, without moving from my seat. "Why don't you start by explaining Horizon Solutions, the parallel company you registered under your name 3 months after we started our partnership?" James's smile froze. David Wilson furrowed his brow, looking from James to me. "Or maybe we can discuss how you forged my signature on the operating agreement amendments. I have the handwriting analysis right here." James adjusted his tie, trying to maintain composure. "Olivia, you're clearly confused. We can discuss your concerns privately afterward. Right now, we have important business, more important than fraud, than the misappropriation of company resources, than embezzlement." I kept my voice calm, almost cordial. "David, you're about to invest $2 million in a company built on forged documents and fraudulent accounting practices. Are you sure you want to proceed?" David turned to James, who now had visible beads of sweat on his forehead. "This is ridiculous," James said, his voice losing its usual confidence. "She's just upset because you plan to push me out today," I finished. "Tell me, James, were you going to use the same line? 'The company is mine now, you're out'? Rachel Parker told me you used those exact words with her." For the first time since I had met him, James Connor was completely speechless. The conference room door opened and Maya walked in, carrying her own folder of documents. Behind her, to my surprise, was my father, his face a mask of professional determination I had rarely seen since his retirement. "Apologies for the delay," Maya said formally. "I'm Maya Rodriguez, legal counsel for Ms. Bennett, and this is Kevin Bennett, forensic accountant." David Wilson stood up, clearly uncomfortable. "What's going on here?" "James, you said this was just a simple investment formalization." Before James could respond, I opened my laptop and projected a presentation onto the conference room wall. "Let's clear some things up, Mr. Wilson. This is the true financial state of Horizon Creative." For the next 20 minutes, I meticulously presented the evidence I had gathered. The parallel accounting books, the hidden contracts, the fraudulent invoices, the emails where James explicitly discussed how he planned to remove me from the company. And here's the most interesting part. I pointed to a chart. "This is the real value of the work I produced versus what James officially reported. The difference? Nearly $300,000 in unreported revenue." James tried to interrupt multiple times, but each attempt was countered with another incriminating document. David Wilson watched in silence, his expression hardening with every revelation. "You're not the first investor James has brought in to help push out a partner," I continued. "It's a pattern, a strategy." My father then took the floor, his voice carrying decades of auditing experience. "As a forensic accountant, I can confirm that these discrepancies are not mistakes or differences in interpretation. They are deliberate manipulations of financial records, something any competent auditor would immediately recognize." Maya slid a document across the table toward James. "This is a formal notice of legal action for fraud, document forgery, breach of fiduciary duty, and corporate resource misappropriation. We have options to resolve this outside of court, but the window for negotiation is closing fast." James stared at the document as if it were a venomous snake. His usual confidence had evaporated, replaced by barely concealed panic. "David," he tried, turning to the supposed investor, "this is just a misunderstanding. I can explain." "I'm not interested in explanations," David interrupted coldly, gathering his documents. I'm interested in not being associated with a potential fraud case. David Wilson stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. This meeting is over for me. James, do not contact me again. He hesitated at the door, then turned to me. Ms. Bennett, impressive investigative work. If you resolve this situation, perhaps we can discuss legitimate opportunities in the future. After he left, the silence in the room was almost palpable. James looked like a drowning man, desperately searching for a lifeline. Olivia, look, clearly there were some misunderstandings. They weren't misunderstandings, I cut him off. It was a carefully orchestrated plan to steal my company, the company I built with my talent, my reputation, and my $150,000. We can work this out, he pleaded, his tone now completely different. We're partners, we always have been. Maybe there were some communication gaps, but Maya interrupted. Mr. Connor, this is not an informal negotiation. My client has 3 options for you. I slid a folder across the table. Option 1. Complete dissolution of the company. All assets are liquidated, all contracts reviewed. My initial investment is returned with interest. You assume all existing debts, which, as we've discovered, are substantial. James grew even paler. Option 2, I continued, opening the second folder. Restructuring. I take majority control of the company, 70% ownership. You remain as a minority partner with no decision-making power. Additionally, you return all misappropriated revenue with interest. This is absurd. You can't. Oh, but she can, my father interjected. The original LLC documentation, before your fraudulent amendments, includes specific clauses in the event of proven misconduct. You should read the contracts. You sign, son. James swallowed hard. And the third option? Option 3 is the one I prefer, I replied calmly. You sell your stake for a symbolic $1. You sign a non-compete and confidentiality agreement. In return, we don't present the fraud evidence to the authorities. You want me to just walk away? Exactly as you plan to do to me today. I leaned back in my chair. The difference is, I'm offering you a way out that doesn't end with you facing criminal charges. James looked at the documents in front of him, then at Maya, then at my father, and finally at me. I saw the exact moment when reality settled in. He had lost. Completely. How long do I have to decide? The same courtesy you would have given me. 48 hours. James chose option 3. Not out of integrity, but out of self-preservation. In the end, his reputation mattered more to him than money. Something I should have realized from the start. The man lived for appearances and connections. The transition wasn't easy. In the following weeks, I had to unravel the chaos James had created. Confused clients, disorganized accounts, uneasy employees. With every layer we peeled back, new unpleasant surprises emerged. Undocumented promises, unfinished projects, unrealistic expectations. However, something unexpected also happened. Without James monopolizing client relations, I was finally able to show who was truly behind the work they admired. Many were shocked to learn that James Connor's agency was, in reality, driven by the creative vision of Olivia Bennett. 6 months later, sitting in my new office, smaller, more modest, but entirely mine, I received an email that made me smile. It was from David Wilson, now a legitimate investor, expressing interest in discussing funding opportunities. I'm not interested, I told Maya as I showed her the email. At least not under traditional terms. What do you have in mind? She asked. Now not just my attorney, but also my friend and business advisor. I want to build something different, something truly mine. I rebranded the company as Genuine Creative, a name that carried both a promise and a lesson. My father, coming out of retirement, helped me establish a transparent financial structure. Maya drafted clear and fair contracts for everyone involved. 1. Year after that fateful meeting, Genuine Creative became profitable, not explosively, as James had always promised, but solidly and sustainably. Our team grew to 8 people, each selected not just for their talent, but for their shared values. As for James, I've heard rumors that he's trying to launch a new agency in Chicago. I wish him luck, and his future partners, wisdom. On my desk, I keep a small framed quote that my father gave me when we opened the new office. It reads, "Success built on lies is just failure waiting to happen." My experience with Horizon cost me savings, time, and trust, but it gave me something far more valuable, an understanding of my own worth, and the importance of protecting it. People often ask if I regret starting that partnership. My answer is always the same. Every penny lost was an investment in a lesson no business school could ever teach. Investing all my savings into our company was a mistake. Hearing James say, "The company is mine, you're out," was devastating. But he never knew about my plan B, not because I kept it a secret, but because I never imagined I would need one. Now I always have one,